may tie into our present day situation. Let's need for a word of prayer. Our Father, we thank you for bringing us here to worship you on this blessed Sabbath day. We ask you, Lord, that you will come into us, teach us, and let us learn from how the past people's experiences how they parallel our lives, and may we take these instances and learn from them so that we may better serve you in the time to come. We ask you to keep us and bless us now. In Jesus' name, amen. Right. The broad topic will be history and the Bible, showcasing our foundations. Now, this is going to go through I'm dealing with the New Testament, starting from the past, from the book of Revelation, and going to the book of Matthew, showing some of the major cities, individuals, and occurrences that happened in this time, how these people had a significant impact on the development of the Christian church as a whole and Christianity as a whole, and how we may take lessons from these people's their lives. I'm dealing with the seven churches in Asia. This next church is the one that is preached about mostly among the Seventh-day Adventist brethren, Laodicea. The picture you see is the artist's impression of how the church looked around the time of John at the beginning of the 2nd century AD. It was a pretty impressive city, had 2 theaters, a gymnasium, a healing area called Asclepion for the Greek god of healing, Asclepius, and various other important buildings. Now, it was built on the river Lycus in Turkey, and it was originally founded as a border fortress, and that was protect the trade routes because 3 important trade routes converge where this city was built. It was originally called Dispolis, the city of Zeus, and that city was established in 260 BC by the Seleucid king. This is one of the kings that came after Alexander the Great, Antiochus II, in honor of his wife Laodicea. The picture above is the main highway through the city, and it is called the Syrian Way or the Golden Road. And that's because it was on this highway, on both sides, was lined with many banks. Some of the major foundation structures that you see in the picture are these two of the largest banks in the then known Roman world at that time. Now, Laodicea was situated in a bottleneck between 2 other cities, Hierapolis and Colossae. Both were mentioned in the book of Colossians, Colossae, the city where that the letter to the Colossians was written to. And this played an important factor on how these 2 other cities played an important factor on one of the major things in Laodicea. Now, as I told you, it was on the major highway from Pergamon to Antioch, from Ephesus to Damascus in Syria. And nowadays, it is found near the modern-day city of Denzili, about 4 miles away from Denzili, in the province of that same name in modern-day country of Turkey. Now, one reason why this was so important, the location of the Odyssea, is because of the trade. But though you establish a city cannot run on trade alone. You must feed the people. Water was one of the main problematic occurrences in this city. Where the city is located, it is on the edge of a pretty barren, arid area, where daytime temperatures normally reach an average of about 40 degrees Celsius, 38 to 40 degrees Celsius. So during the summer months, many times the river Lycus would run low and would not be able to supply a good amount of water to the city. So they were ingenious in developing pipes, pressurized pipes that run from the valley below where the river Lycus was situated and pumped water up the hill. Now, they were not using any hand pumps, any windmills, no electricity to get this water uphill. All they used was the size of pipes and the pressure of the water flow to get this water up. But there was a problem with the water. The water was highly mineralized. And because of the high mineral content, people's passing through the city could not often drink the water. They would either spit out the water after first drinking it, or even if they could stomach it at first, they will vomit afterwards. Indication is made of this when Jesus said they will spew them out of his mouth. Now, the top picture is the water tower. Now, this is the gathering where all the water pipes from the valley will come up and siphon out in a fountain-like area. You might not be able to tell from the top picture, but at the bottom picture, you actually see the remains of two of the pipes in the water tower and how highly calcified they are. There were about every 4 to 6 months, workers had to go down into the sewers and take out all the lime and calcium and all the mineral deposits from out of the pipes to ensure that the people have good water to drink. The Odyssea was also renowned for its medical center. And the most famous component of that medical center was its eye salve, which was made from the powder of the minerals and some of the oils from the local trees produced there. People came from all around to get their eye health checked. They also checked the ears, and some of the same minerals help to clear out blocked ears and improve people's hearing as well. Now, you see on this map, you see the location of the two neighboring cities. Now, there's a theory that the city of Colossae, which was close to the Taurus Mountains, brought cold water in from the snow-capped mountains to the city of Laodicea. And Hierapolis is a hot spring area, and they brought hot water in from Hierapolis into Laodicea. There is not much evidence supporting this, though they have found two aqueducts that run along the ground, not the overhead aqueducts that we are famous seeing, from Colossae to Laodicea. And people often believe that it was the combination of these two waters that made it lukewarm. I think the archaeological evidence tend to go with the former, that it was the mineralized water from the river Lycus. But the bath system in Laodicea offered hot water baths, cold water baths, and temperate water or lukewater baths. So it's quite possible that they did bring in water from the hot springs in Hierapolis and cold water from Colossae to treat at least the bath houses in the city. Now, Antiochus, after he built the city, his descendant, brought in over 2,000 Jewish families into the area. So it had a strong Jewish presence. And many of these Jews also are converted to Christianity around the time of John. Now, the interesting thing is that it was destroyed by an earthquake in AD 60. But prior to this, in the AD 40s, Laodicea had petitioned the Roman government for being one of the centers for the new established emperor cult to build one of the temples there in Laodicea. The Roman government at that time didn't think that Laodicea was wealthy enough to successfully run one of these temples. But after the city was destroyed by the earthquake in AD 60, the government stepped in to help, but the Laodiceans said, no, we don't want your help. We will rebuild the city ourselves. The remains that you see in fantastic architecture that you might find in the city of Denzeli, the museum there from the Laodicea ruins, are actually, most of them are the remains of the rebuilt city. And many scholars claim that it was even more beautiful than the city previously. And they built this city entirely out of their own pocket without help from the Roman government. They were rich and they increased with goods and had no need of anything. Now, we hear Jesus talk about he will give us white raiment when talking about Laodiceans. That was because Laodicea was famous for its black wool and black wool garments. They look quite nice to me. The sheep, I was thinking it was like, a two-color sheep, like how we have the black belly sheep and other sheep around here in the Caribbean. But it's a completely black sheep. Face, horns, leg, wool, everything on it says black. The only thing different, it has the red tongue. Now, Laodicea was not built because of any natural resources. Most cities sprang up because it had good farmland, good mining area, fishing was good, irrigation was good from a river or something like that. But Laodicea sprang up strictly because of trade and because of the uniqueness of their water system. It could be cut off from at any point if the city was besieged. So they definitely needed a peaceful empire to ensure their survival. It also had one of the longest lasting Christian churches even after the birth of the Ottoman Empire. And the church in Laodicea lasted until 1450 AD. Now, Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. It's founded in 189 by King Euonymus of he was the king of Pergamon. That was a Greek kingdom before Romans took control. He loved his brother Attalus so much that he built this city for him. Attalus was called Philadelphos because he was so loyal to his older brother. In AD 17, the city suffered a devastating earthquake. And the aftershocks from that earthquake continued for quite a while. It is now called Eleshir. The city of Eleshir is actually built right on top of the city of Philadelphia. And this was one of 4 or 5 cities in the Greek world at that time that was called Philadelphia. The unique thing about Philadelphia is that it had no established pagan cult. It had no major temples to any of the major Greek or Roman gods in the city. Also had no city walls. And that was because it was created to spread Greek culture, language, and influence to the surrounding lands, Phrygia, Lydia, Dacia, in a peaceful manner. And it was so successful that the native Lydians had, by the time of John, lost their native language and all spoke Greek. Now the earthquake had many aftershocks, stretched for about 50 to 60 years afterwards. So many of the residents had to move out of the city for fear of the buildings falling on them. And many of them lived in ramshackle huts around the city, so they wouldn't face anything large falling on them, any of the large stone work or mason work. Now Tiberius, after the earthquake, stopped the city from paying taxes. That was also to encourage more of the neighboring residents to come to the city. So, go to some place where you don't have to pay taxes. That sounds pretty good right about now. But that was also to make sure that Greek and Roman culture is effectively spread. The city fell to the Ottoman Turks by 1390. This is when the last Christian church in the city was destroyed. That building that we see there is actually a 6th century Byzantine church, the Church of St. John. There's little archaeology done in the city of Leicester, so there's hardly anything showing the once city of Philadelphia. The last city I'm going to mention is Pergamos. Now, this was a fantastic city, and a lot of research and archaeology was done on this. In this first fresco, in the foreground, we actually see the Asclepion. That's the healing center, which had its own theater, baths, dormitories, other houses within that compound. The hill on the top is what is called the Acropolis, or the housing of the gods in the high places. That's where you have all the major temples, and the king or queen or governor will have his palace. These are just two more frescoes. The top one shows the altar of Zeus, as it probably would have looked like in the 2nd century AD. The bottom one shows one of the major theaters and amphitheater areas up on the Acropolis as well. Now, it was originated in the 8th century BC, probably among the Phrygian kings. But after 188 BC, Eumenes and Attalus decided to make this one of their major cities. And they decided to make it a second only to Athens, or a second Athens. The actual floor plan of the Acropolis, where they house the temples, modeled Athens to a T. This picture shows the temple of Asclepius there. Now, the temple of Asclepius was world famous, but it was strange in that no one with a terminal illness was allowed to enter the temple. Because above the doorway, apparently if you go to the Bergamo, this is modern day city, museum, you will find an inscription saying death is not allowed here. So if you had a terminal illness, you were not allowed inside the Asclepion. Only people that looked like they were going to get better were allowed inside the Asclepion. That's the theater area from one of the early frescoes. It was located about 16 miles from the sea, but it was mainly a seat of governmental and cultural power. The library in Pergamon was the second largest library in the world. And Mark Antony, when he had been betrothed to Cleopatra in 43 BC, attacked the city and he reportedly brought 200,000 volumes of scrolls to the library in Alexandria from the Pergamon library. Now, the governor had the right of something called ius gladii. The Romans had no J in their alphabet, so the J is pronounced as an I. Ius gladii. And ius gladii means supreme jurisdiction, the right to absolve from or condemn a man to death, the right of the sword, the executory powers of the law, the right power or prerogative of punishing for a crime. So the governor of Pergamon was able to sentence you to death without the normal judicial hearing that you would have received in most of the other Roman cities. You will remember that Jesus Christ was brought before Pilate, and Pilate had to take into account the Jews, and then the other Roman officials. They had to weigh out what would be best to happen to Jesus Christ if it was to crucify him or not. But this didn't happen in Pergamon. The governor had the right to, this man live or this man don't live. And this is going to become pretty important for one of the people mentioned in the Revelation text in Revelation 2. Now, the word parchment was actually derived from the word Pergamos, because Pergamos was actually famous for its creation of parchment. Parchments were not created there originally, but this where the Greek world at that time got most of their supplies. No, Jesus Christ called it the seat of Satan. This is the temple, the altar of Zeus in the Pergamum Museum in Berlin. Now, Pergamos is derived from the Greek word meaning tower. Christ has called his strongholds a tower. Now, this was the main attraction at the Acropolis. Daily incenses and offerings were given at the altar, but it had one special feature, and that was a brazen bull that was placed outside. People were sacrificed in this bull. This is the artist's impression of how the altar probably looked back in the 2nd century AD. Now, you will note that Jesus talked about a martyr in Pergamon called Antipas. Now, Christian history from the nominal church, states that Antipas was one who spoke out against the atrocities in Pergamon, the emperor cult that I would have mentioned at the last time, and how they treat patients at the Asclepion. Now, at the Asclepion, after you were assessed to see if you will get better or not, you walked through an underground tunnel where you had this courtyard where you were given something to drink. It got you pretty high, whatever they gave you to drink, and then you were sent to the dormitories. There you fell asleep amongst the writhing bodies of harmless snakes, and the snakes were supposed to bring visions to you, which will show you what was wrong with you or the part of you that was hurting. So after you got these visions from the snakes, you will go to the doctors and take some clay and mold the body part that you think was hurting you and give to the doctors. And then the doctor would give their pronouncement, their medication, what have you. And people from all over the Greco-Roman world came to Pergamon to get this healing. But after the rise of Christianity, Antipas spoke out against this. And it was rumored that he had even healed people by praying for them. So the priest said that the god Asclepius came to them in a vision and said that they must get rid of Antipas. So they went to the Roman governor. The Roman governor then told Antipas that he must burn a sacrifice in one of the temples to the Roman emperor. Antipas refused, and for his refusal, he was put in the bronze bull outside the altar of Zeus. Now, the bronze bull was unique in that in the head chamber, there was a specific piping system that came out through the mouth. So when the prisoner was placed in the bull, his head was close up in the head area of the bull, and they will heat and they will light a fire under the bull. So while the man is screaming, or whoever person is, they did it with women as well. While the individual was screaming in pain, the pipes will make the sound come out like if the bull is mooing. And it gave the impression that the bull came to life within the fire. The bull was the symbol of Mithridates. Mithra was one of the main contributors to the upkeep of Pergamon before Rome took it over. So that was a symbol of Mithraism out there. It was a pretty brutal way to die. And people will be all around, as you see in the fresco, dancing and rejoicing and singing while this is going on. Now, it also competed with Smyrna and Ephesus to be the major city in the province of Asia. But historians reason Pergamon was the governmental capital. Smyrna was the cultural capital. Ephesus was the economic capital. But after Ephesus lost its way, Pergamon then became the capital of the region of Asia. Now, at both Ephesus and Pergamon, they mentioned the Nicolaitans. Now, who was the Nicolaitans? Who were the Nicolaitans, sorry? Now, the name is derived from Nicholas, who the Catholics call Saint Nicholas, from Antioch, and he's mentioned in Acts 6, verse 5, among the deacons to the church, where Stephen was named. The name Nicolaitan means conquerors of the lay people. And the main reason why this group came up, because it was some contention among Nicholas and an act that he performed. Now, according to varying sources, the story may change. What I have found is that those who paint Nicholas in a bad light tend to have Gnostic leanings, the early church fathers with Gnostic leanings. The ones without the Gnostic leanings tend to paint Nicholas in a better light, but say that his followers were misplaced in the action that he took. Now, what had happened in that he had reportedly had a very beautiful wife, and someone was making advances towards her. And apparently he rebuked that gentleman pretty soundly in the Christian church in Jerusalem. So after the church leaders, probably the Apostle James was among them, talked to him he made a statement. He brought forth his wife and said, he is not jealous of her. Any one of them can have her, and he will not feel any way about it. Now, people took this to mean that true brotherly love among brethren mean that you would share everything. That meant sharing your wife included. And Eusebius and other Gnostic writers of the early church agreed that Nicholas took this stance. But Jerome and Justin Martyr, who were not influenced by the Gnostic writings, disagree and said that he was a very devout man, took an issue with the causes of the widows, orphans, and the poor, and was pretty devout in his duties toward them in alleviating their stresses and pain to help them have a better life. But two schools of thought came out from this action. Nicholas was also famous for saying that it is our duty to fight against the flesh and to abuse it. Now, they took, as I say, two schools of thought came out. One was that, as it stated there, you are saved in the spirit. So whatever is done in the spirit after you are saved is holy, and the flesh is of no regard. So whatever you do in the flesh then does not affect the spirit. So after you are baptized and you have been quote unquote born again, your spirit is safe. So you could drink, party, have fornication, whatever. And these are all acts of the flesh, and they do not affect your spirit because you will supposedly have your spirit attuned to God. The second group, and this was the main group that Christ mentioned in both Ephesians and Pergamos, to the Ephesians and Pergamos. The second group, taken from his saying that it abuse flesh and it abuse self, is that you're after you have probably if you have a wife and you have performed your husbandly duties in that you have given her children, if you want to truly pursue the work of the Lord, remove yourself and your wife from your family and pursue the work of the Lord. Shut up yourself somewhere or go about the work of the Lord, abstaining from anything they call worldly, like sex, going on long unrequired fast, dressing in shabby, poor clothing. And you must remember these are areas that had winter. So some of these people probably shivered and starved to death. And various other things. And some evangelists nowadays see this as a type of proto-Gnosticism. Because out of the Gnostics is where we get the tradition of having monks in the Catholic Church. So these two diverging views are the views of the Nicolaitans. One, in that you could do anything, but once you have been previously saved, you are always saved. And the next one, you are to subtract yourself from everything worldly, even the things that God has ascribed to you, because you are doing a higher, a better work. And the top picture actually shows you some of the temples at the Acropolis at Pergamon. The city itself had over 30 temples, and these 30 temples represented the 30 main gods in the Greco-Roman pagan religion. And that has been my presentation. Thank you very much. Any questions? All right, just one question. To continue, I could go with other cities, probably cities that Paul visited, like the Colossians, which we mentioned here, other cities, or I could go with some of the important people that Paul and the apostles met, and how they have influenced history in general and may have influenced the church. So, which direction you think is best? Someone could come to me afterwards and probably make a suggestion. Thank you very much.